Let's start with Landon. He gives us a good one. He says, is there a chance now that either Indiana or Penn State get, as he says, Florida Stated, and a 10-2 SEC team takes their spot? Now, Landon, of course, referring to last year where Florida State was undefeated, didn't have their quarterback. Another discussion, but I see where Landon's coming from. Is there a way now where a team with a better record from the Big Ten Conference could get boxed out by a team from the SEC with a lesser record, but maybe it's the eye test, maybe it's the resume, maybe it's just the committee bias. You hear that this time of year. The committee, they're so biased, they love the SEC. Well, is that true? We'll see. But is that possible? Well, let's walk through what that world would potentially even look like, all right? Let's start with the Big Ten. I think it's true that the locks would be your conference champs, or your conference champ and your conference champ participant, if you will. So the runner-up or the champion are probably both in, safe to say. So let's say that's Ohio State, let's say that's Oregon. Whoever you have there as the champ, we're cool with it. But let's say that's the two you at least have locked in from the Big Ten. Let's also assume now that Chalk holds and Notre Dame wins out their 11-1. So they're in. So we're at 3 teams now that all have spots spoken for if you're keeping track at home. Let's say the same thing we said about the Big Ten is true for the SEC. You have the SEC champion and the runner-up are both in. So for those keeping track at home, we're at 5. I think the ACC is going to work itself out to be kind of nice, neat, and tidy. So we get 1 there. That's the champion. Same deal with the Big 12 champion. So as of right now, we have 7 spots accounted for, plus the G5 rep, the G5 highest-rated conference champion, highest-ranked conference champion. We'll say it's Boise State. 8 spots. All right, so we haven't gotten to Indiana or Penn State or the other teams that could be in the mix from the SEC that would be 10-2. So what would be like the disaster scenario here if you're Penn State or Indiana? Is a Tennessee being 10-2 with a loss to Georgia, Georgia being 10-2 with a win over Tennessee, getting to that mark, Texas losing to Texas A&M, they fall to 10-2. A&M, they win out. They finish at 10-2. Ole Miss is 10-2, and Alabama finishes at 10-2 as well. And oh, by the way, just sprinkle on there a little Eli Drinkwitz special. They're 10-2, and they think they should be in the college football playoff. Are any of those teams good enough in the eyes of the committee to be in over an 11-1 Indiana or an 11-1 Penn State? With this track record, or this overall format laid out for us, with this college football playoff hypothetical, I think if you're Penn State, you're in. I mentioned the 10-2s. I get that. Cool. If you want to have an argument about what would happen on a neutral site, I'll hear it. But based on where they're at right now, Penn State, if they went out, they're not dropping 8 spots. They're not getting jumped by 8 other teams to find their way into the college football playoff and Penn State somehow getting boxed out. It's not happening. It's not happening. All right. So Penn State, if you're a Nittany Lion fan, big inhale, big exhale, you're good. Handle business. You control your own destiny. Forget what happens in the Big Ten Championship. Don't worry about the SEC. You're in. Now from Indiana, you should feel confident because that's kind of how y'all roll now with Kurt Cignetti calling the shots. But I don't think you sleep with 100% certainty that you're going to be in the college football playoff if your only loss is to Ohio State. Now, what have we seen from this committee now? They value the eye test. How do we know that? Well, they got Indiana ranked ahead of BYU. And I've said my piece on BYU. I don't feel the need to do that again. But BYU now has got 2 top 25 wins to their name, and they're undefeated. Indiana has 0 top 25 wins to their name, also undefeated. So why is Indiana ahead of BYU? Big Ten bias, right? No, I don't think I would say that. But I would say Indiana has been the most definitive team in America when it comes to their margin of victory. Right? They're something in the range of like 28 to 30 points is what they're beating their opponents by. BYU, you got a win over Oklahoma State by like 3 points. You need a little bit of extra BYU magic to beat Utah. Like, you hear what I'm saying? Indiana's eye test is superior to BYU's. So all that's to say, a little anecdote there to bring home the point that the committee values the eye test. So bringing it back to the idea around Indiana and their college football playoff aspirations, if that Ohio State loss is just bad, what did we say earlier in this live show about Missouri? When you saw them lose to A&M, you saw them get just 30-pieced by Alabama. Forget who was on the field and who wasn't. You had a certain feeling about Missouri in the pit of your stomach about what they were going forward. Like, the resume is one thing. Cool, they finished 10-2, whatever. Say what you want about Missouri. They're not a college football playoff team. The concern for me, if I'm an Indiana fan, is we end up losing, call it 21 points to Ohio State. I already hear you saying, we're not going to lose by 21. Okay, you asked a question. Let's talk this out here. You lose by 21 points to Ohio State. Definitively, the eye test starts to lose some points there. That would make me nervous. Because at that point now, I'm looking at some of these other teams within the SEC that we just spoke to. Every single one of them, in my opinion, has a superior eye test and could make the argument for a superior resume. Because you look at Indiana, and great, you're doing phenomenal things, beating the teams by how much you're beating them by. Awesome. But you don't have a top 10 win. Ole Miss just beat Georgia. I mean, Texas beat the brakes off Michigan. If they're that 10-2 team sitting there, and you just beat Michigan by, 5 points? And Texas went into Michigan and just absolutely throttled them? I don't think you feel good about the chance if it's Texas versus Indiana for one more spot in the college football playoff. Forget who makes the SEC title game. Any of those teams would, I think, get in over Indiana. A&M's got 2 top 10 wins to their name, I believe. Alabama's got a potentially in this scenario now. I mean, it's hard to forget what just happened in Death Valley over LSU. Hard to forget what Bama did to Georgia. Like, all the way that you walk this through, man, for 4 spots left, if you're telling me there's 6 teams within the SEC that are worthy of having a chance at that last spot, 2 of them, I suppose, are already locked up with the SEC championship game, I think that would make me very concerned from Indiana, is all I'm going to say there. So we can talk through the hypotheticals of, the tiebreakers, the conference title games, this, that. All I'm saying is, if you're Indiana, you do not want it to come back to a fact where you point to the Ohio State game and you got drugged, and then you see the rest of what the SEC has, and you're like, okay, that's it's not a situation we want to be in. So, with that being said, is Indiana a lock to be in the college football playoff at 11-1? No. Do you feel good? Because is there a chance that do you feel like this is likely for us to have this many 10-2 SEC teams? I don't know if I'd say that, but I'm just saying now. You want to make the Ohio State game look as respectable as possible. If you win the game, forget what I said. But if you can just keep from being just drugged through the mud, yeah, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a chance. All right? So, again, that's kind of it's a bit of a mental gymnastics there for those of y'all hanging with us. We appreciate it. But Indiana fans, feel good, but I don't think you feel 110% like you are a lock for the college football playoff. The hard count brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks Daily Fantasy, made easy to use, easy to withdraw what you win. Again, when you use code HARDCOUNT now, just for playing $5 in lineups, you get $50 in promo funds. So that's $50 at no expense to your own real bank account you can use to go buy some Christmas presents early for your family and friends. And who doesn't love that? All right, so prizepicks.com. Appreciate y'all using that code and appreciate them for bringing you the hard count today.